Welcome to the Always Better Than Yesterday podcast. I'm your host, Brian Hartley. This podcast exists to equip and inspire your heart-centered leadership. Every week, we bring interviews with some of the greatest heart sets and mindsets on the planet. I hope the heartprint of our time spent together is that it creates new possibilities for you and all those you come into contact with. If you'd like to explore what we could make possible for you, then head to abty.co.uk/connect and book in a free 30-minute call to begin our journey. On episode 312, what an honour it is to welcome our great friend James Malins to the podcast. James is an Akashic Mentor, guide and life coach. He is a like-hearted brother, a warrior of the heart. He's the man behind the Light of Albion and a visionary for a future where we live consciously, compassionately and in relationship with the land, each other and God. His work as a coach is designed to give people their power back. If your heart longs for village life, for forest gardens, for community built on love, truth and sovereignty, if you've ever felt you're here to help birth a new way of living here on earth, this conversation will feel like home. It's episode 312 with James Malins. James Malins, welcome to the Always Better Than Yesterday podcast. How are you, brother?
Good, my friend. I really appreciate the opportunity to come on and chat with you.
I've been looking forward to this conversation. You and I first met 2020, I think it was January, before the world went a little bit crazy. We met at Esther McCann, good friend of mine's event, and you were speaking there. And yeah, just this conversation, obviously our paths went in separate different ways, but back together now. And I'm really looking forward to having a great conversation, my friend. How are you today?
Yeah, good, feeling good. Been lovely, warm, sunny day here, so I can't complain, to be honest.
Yeah, one of the things we just talked about before we jumped on was about an authentic conversation, and that's something I really like observing you. I really sense a degree of authenticity. There's a presence in your voice, there's a presence in what you're talking about. For those that have ears, they will hear, right? And I think that's a big part of authenticity. I guess I'd start at the beginning. Has that always been the case, or has there been a degree of inauthenticity that you've had to journey through?
It's an interesting one, because to answer that question requires a humble mind. So here's my answer to this, actually. I have been very fortunate in my life. I've had my challenges, as everybody has, but I have had a beautiful upbringing. I have the most unconditionally loving mother you can imagine, a strong and centered father that was there. My auntie was an absolutely gorgeous woman. My nan was another beautiful, angelic soul. So from an early age, I was surrounded by people who were deeply giving and loving and kind and compassionate. And so, it's what I was taught. When I through experiencing those things from people like that, you kind of, within yourself, you're not thinking about, or what can I get out of it, and all of these sort of things with what you're doing. I mean, that's not to say I've always been the most conscious man in the world. No. Let me just, clarify that in this conversation. I haven't always been the most conscious man. I think throughout everybody's lives, we hurt people indirectly through not being aware of things at the time. And funnily enough, I just got finished doing a video about forgiveness, and one of the things is we don't know what we don't know. And throughout my life, there's been a lot of times when I don't know what I don't know, and so once you know it, you think, what was I doing? What was I thinking? So apologies throughout life are then required for things like that. So yeah, but to answer the question, the main reason why I do what I do, and kind of why I try to carry myself the way I carry myself, is that there's nothing that I really need from the world. Okay, we live in a world where finances, we've got to, at the minute, exchange money for food and things, but I'm not bothered particularly about fame. I'm quite happy to sit in the garden for 6 hours in the sun. There's nothing that I really need, I suppose, on a James level. But I suppose that's to be that's to be seen in the future
Well,
too.
I think there's some wisdom there in terms of that is a subtle act of defiance in a world that, since time begins, we've been told that the apple is out there, right? Here's the one tree you're not allowed to eat from. So what do? We want that tree, and actually be having the wisdom to go. Actually, I've got all that I need. I lack nothing. Like, it's all abundant. I'm part of nature. I am in flow, giving and receiving. I sometimes
Mm,
the wisdom is get back to that state rather than add more to it.
mm. I like that. That's really nice.
Mm.
I really like that.
Yeah, I think one of my early archetypes as I grew up was the rebel, right? I think I I think I oppose to my strength and to my detriment. And
Mm,
I can really see that structure in life now where, the serpent and in the apple is that is modern day consumerism. It's
mhm,
just, hey, here's energy in a drink. Here's or dare I
mm.
say now, focus in a product. It's the next thing, right?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you say that because I was also the same, the rebel. One thing that my father did definitely give me was questioning the ridiculousness of what was. And I mean, as a young lad, kind of growing up, you don't get it until you get it. And then you look
Yeah.
around, you're like, now hang on
And
a
you
minute.
can't be told.
You can't be told, no. So you look around and you're like, no, there is something wrong here.
Yeah.
Like I'm being told things that I don't resonate with, but then I'm being said that I should just accept it and I'm not.
Mm,
And so you get to that point where I think for me it was just, when I realized I sort of liberated myself from, the imposing of society's ideas and how that made me feel, then it was just simply a matter of, man, this feels good.
mm.
Like I just want other people to feel this. If I can feel this and do it, then anybody can. And that's really the baseline of anything that I do, to be honest. Like it is as simple as that.
Mm. One of the things that I really like is you just mentioned your parents, and it could be such
Mm.
a. My coach personally says to me that we're sent nothing but angels. Our job is to decide whether they have white wings or black wings.
I like
And
that.
yeah, and it really makes you think, in terms of many journeys, you
Mm.
talk about such angelic presence. Well, I resonate with an angelic presence, but one that sent me on a path in a completely different way.
Mm.
Now the wisdom I have is all to my highest good and my highest expression in this lifetime. But I'm reading a book called The Gospel of Love and Peace by the Essenes. So it's an
Nice.
incredible book. And one thing, I mean, call me a heretic, but one of the things that I really resonate with this idea is that these group of people really believed if they lived in a way that I know you're passionate about, which is purifying and living in harmony, they would naturally birth the Christ. They would
Mm.
create a human vessel purified to such a degree that the Christ would be made manifest in that
Mm.
age. And that's kind of the beautiful image I get is look and see what's possible when we have souls birthed unburdened.
Absolutely. I've got tingles going on all over
Mm.
everywhere because it's funny you say about the Essenes because I just got finished a few months ago. All of us actually, but my mother and my brother Lucas, we finished the book Anna, the grandmother of Jesus.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Just batten down the energy build up there. Which
yeah.
ironically, now the second book, I don't know how I feel about yet.
Hmm.
I really that there's a part of me within that just is rejecting it immensely. But the first one, when it was just her, it's like the Anastasia books. It's basically talking about moving back to this place of conscientiousness, And so the video I just did about forgiveness, I talked about we don't know what we don't know. It's kind of like we have um, we have our experiences, and I will always say to people that things happened to you, at least so that people can sit with that, like, had a really rough upbringing or this, parents or whatever, family members, whatever it is, like things
Mm.
happen to you, at least sit there for a moment.
Mm.
But once you reach a level of consciousness, then you have no choice but to face it, they happened for you.
Mm.
And it's that in between part, that it happened to you or it happened for you, that I find is that, that's where people can struggle, but it's where the empowerment lies.
Yeah.
Like that's where the empowerment lies. Because once you can go beyond that into the it happened for me, then you're free. And so it's funny because just forgiveness was one of those things of like that I kind of put down was that forgiveness is the pathway to love, or forgiveness is the bridge between the unconscious or the unaware and the conscious and aware um, in our lives. So yeah, there we go.
So for those of you that are listening on the podcast, I've just held up a copy of Anna, Grandmother of Jesus, A Message of Wisdom and Love. It's something I came into my awareness last month, so I have not read it yet, James, and I'm quite happy for you to give me as many spoiler alerts as you'd like. But what did you take from this book?
Now it's interesting because the very baseline of it is it's going through the journey of Yeshua. So it's talking from the perspective of his grandmother, Anna. And it's going through what they did, the sacred sites that they visited, the experiences that they had, the initiations, because there are quite profound initiations. Some of them are found in cultures like the native Indians with um, the vision quest, where they go out perhaps 3 days, no food, no water, and you basically you're meeting death. You're looking death in the eyes. But it shows you the path the Essenes did. So they basically went from, they educated the world on transcending the fear of death. This was one of the biggest things, like transcending the fear of death. And I really think that transcending the fear of death is reaching up and looking from the other world. And that's kind of the word that I call it, heaven, the other world, whatever people, there's many words for it, but to me, it's the other world. And so what it says is that Yeshua was then able to look from the other world, so he was unburdened by physical realities, limitations, this like, oh, you're either you've cut me or you've whipped me or this, like, but I feel nothing, because I know where I'm from, so it's, I don't know how much justice I've done the book by saying, describing it the way I just did.
Yeah,
Um,
well, it's, and this is the thing, right? I love what the presence of Yeshua has done in my life, and therefore I'm committed to a
mm,
path of just learning more about
mm,
this wonderful man, and to
mm,
even like expand my mind to the fact that he had a grandmother. It was just like,
mm,
huh, isn't that interesting? And then to hear there's some of the things within the book, it's just like, of course, that makes
mm,
so much sense.
mm,
If you think about the role that a grandmother plays, you just acknowledged yours, mine too, huge part of my life. Of course, there's going to be some influence in terms of the men that we've become, Yeshua included,
yeah.
as a result of those nearest and dearest. And it's just, yeah, it's expanded my heart and my mind, which is interesting because your reflection on the second book is that it's maybe contracted rather than expanded your perspective, which is, I think it's an important point of discernment, right?
Yeah, and that's the word. So that you absolutely nailed it with that last word is discernment. It's just now I haven't finished the book, so I have to say this. I have not finished the book, and I will. Um, it's just the concepts they brought forward. It really made me hit a roadblock. I won't share them.
Hmm.
I'm sure that will spark the desire for people to go and find out for themselves. But it just, anyway, I'll leave it there. I'll leave it there. But the most powerful thing that I took from Anna, the grandmother of Jesus, is that they had a community.
Hmm.
Like it wasn't. We people talk about Yeshua, and I've always sort of felt this in my bones, but like there was many of them, and they were all in direct alignment with this desire and this idea of themselves and the future.
Hmm.
So in the book it mentions that Joseph of Arimathea was basically their funder. He was the one that funded everything, the traveling, the what they needed, the homes, the locations, the resources, and so for a lot of people who are listening, who might be thinking, oh my goodness, these people do these amazing things and I'm struggling. I'm struggling. Like I'm opening the fridge door and I'm like, I don't have what I want in there. Like I'm having to buy from non-organic or whatever. It's like, if you're feeling that, like, it's okay. These stories of wonderful individuals, and we are going there. It's not that we're not there, but they had a support network, and that's really what I think is one of the great focuses of the change of our world, is redeveloping and reigniting those support networks. Forest gardens, villages, etc. So yeah.
Good. I want to talk about that, but before we move on, I saw a plate of your food in one of your, I did my research and I get curious, and I saw a plate of your food. And one of the things I've been contemplating after reading the Gospel of Love and Peace is the diet with which Jesus puts forward. So I am looking at your plate. I'm thinking, he's living in harmony with that perspective. So is that something very conscious? I'd love to know kind of your evolution of your eat. If you don't mind me asking such a personal question.
No, it's just absolutely no, not at all. Yeah, for me, so I'm vegetarian. I still have eggs. It's something that, because I train in the gym, that's one of the ones I haven't. I don't know whether I ever will, but I haven't let go of. But one of the things that's really important to me is that I'm trying to make what goes into my body as in alignment with the pristine idea as possible. Now, truthfully, what that would be is drinking from the cleanest rivers up the side of a mountain, or getting it from a borehole. I don't do that, but we do have distillers, etc., for for tap water and things. Because I don't know if anybody has ever done that, but if you distill water, I'll say nothing. It's not it's not to make it any deeper than that. Just distill 5 liters of water, and you tell me what's at the bottom. So it's like, with water and food, like organic eating. We just went and foraged. We found an apple tree just down the road, and ironically, they're eating apples just on a walk. Nobody's eating any, and I'm deeply grateful, but I'm also mind blown. Because when I bit into it, they were the sweetest, most beautiful apples. But they're better than organic. It's out there in nature. So I try to make my diet as best as I possibly can in this moment. But the ideal one is forest gardens, where you're growing your own fruit trees, your own vegetables, mushrooms, herbs and shoots and leaves and berries, nuts and things. When you're around your own trees, it's incomparable to life as we know it.
Yeah. That's kind of where we're at with the wife and I at the moment. We just want to live in harmony with nature as much as possible, and eat, the manifestation of light, basically, that which is life. And don't get me wrong, I'm nowhere near that Edenic principle, but and I understand what you mean about the eggs. Is the bit I've learned as well is, if you live in a true harmonic community where you're loving on animals, their gift back to you is their eggs, their milk, their honey.
Yeah.
You love them. This is what the Bible, I think, meant when it meant dominion over. It meant to go and look after it.
Yeah.
We've made heroic leadership this idea of dominating. I think the Edenic ideal of man is to just look after, to love, to serve, to honor and protect. And if we can get anywhere closer to that Edenic ideal, is to live in harmony with each other, with nature. And I know these are words that are coming out of your heart too. It's funny that, isn't it? When you get closer to the heart, you align with some eternal virtues and values and principles.
Ooh, eternal virtues and values and principles. I love that. I like that a lot. And it's curious because I agree with everything you said, and you mentioned about sort of the Adamic way of life and going back to this idea. And I think that, you see, because we have the full spectrum of experience, you've got the sort of, in quotes, the darkest or evil, and there's a conversation around those words, but the most dark, the most evil, the most vibrant and loving. And I think that, like, the more aware people, to me, we are all, doesn't matter about our behavior or choices, intrinsically within, we're from the loving and the light side of the spectrum. But we're having the full experience. We've got free will. We can choose what we want. That's a part of this experience. However, it's out of duality, there is only a singularity, and it's that love. And it's funny because I can't see what's behind you, Ryan, but I keep just getting this because the text you've got. It's like shining from the
Yeah,
back of you.
yeah.
It's
Well,
all
I'll give you an insight. The very middle is says the words "I am."
fascinating. It literally looks like it's emanating from that middle central point.
And
You
isn't that
know,
a truth?
isn't that interesting? Um, so we come from love, and that's the inherent beingness in the other world. And so this is again the sort of Yeshua, Mary Magdalene, Anna, if you come from that perspective whilst you're in physical reality,
Mm.
that's when you start to radiate, and so it's really interesting. Now, I'd like to share a concept with you that I know that I have a conscious daughter in spirit waiting to come through. Whew, why do I feel like there's a short moment of silence as I say that? It's really if I was to share with you the recent synchronicities around that, I mean I would love to, but it would be at least 6 minutes. It's
We
been
got time. We got time.
you got time. It's absolutely staggering what has happened in regards to. So I'll share with you that her name is Amelia. I've carried her with me and her name with me for a long time. My partner, who I'm with at the minute, has carried that name since birth. And when she told me, she had a tremendous sort of, it just hit her like a train.
Mm.
And
Mm.
this is only over the past 6 or so months. And since then, we have had her name pop up on videos. We've had them over and over again synchronistically come up. On Disney Plus, I don't have it, but my friend did. We clicked on the film Amelia about Amelia Lockhart, and it came up. And the production studios is Avalon Productions.
Oh, of
Now,
course.
Anna, the grandmother of Jesus, is talking about Britain being Avalon. So
Yes,
this was
sir.
like, I'm like, what's happening? Then
Yes.
I'm playing a little video game. I do 10 minutes a day. Okay, I am still a gamer,
I do with
and
my
I'm
son. But this is about a spiritual being, right? The spiritual being is, can I be truly present whilst I'm doing those things? Not hooked by them,
yes,
but can I be truly present and enjoy them for the experience that I have? Because I'm in
yeah.
Wembley Stadium. I'm not idol worshipping, but I am
Uh-huh.
grateful to God for the experience of Noel and Liam Gallagher. I tell you that. It was a spiritual experience.
I love that. But you're right though. And because gaming, just slightly off topic, has given me a lot. The characters, the storyline, the principles and values. So you're right. A conscious awareness of an activity is deeply important. Yeah, you're 100% right. I'm playing this video game, and I realise that I'm playing it's a plane game, and there's a character on it called Amelia, and she's wearing a little pink dress, and she's got little ponytails and things. It's exactly what she looks like. Um, I was doing a performance at Harlech Castle. A little girl runs up. She stands out against the other kids. And her mum's in my ear, Amelia, Amelia, Amelia. And I'm like, okay. The following weekend,
Yeah.
there's another little sweetheart of a child, stands out amongst the rest. I didn't hear her name, but Lucas thought, because he's aware of all this, he's
Mm.
like, I'll ask her. So, what's your name? She goes, Amelia.
Oh, for
And
goodness
he
sake.
tells me, and I'm like,
Okay.
what
Okay.
is happening?
I'm listening.
And then, this is the last one. There's a couple more, but I'll keep it here.
Wow.
My father broke his arm. We've come down to support him. He's healed beautifully. We're in the hospital, and I channeled a while ago, and Amelia came through then before I met my partner for a minute. And my mother reminded me, and I sent it to Lucas, and I was like, "Oh, look, brother, this is what was said about her." He's reading it in his job, just at the entrance, and this woman walks in. As he's reading it, this was 30 minutes after I sent it to him, and the guy next to him goes, "Amelia," and he's like, what? And he goes up to this woman and he says, "What's your name?" And she says, "Amelia." So unfathomable. I
Yes.
cannot begin to express the true incredible nature of what has happened. And the whole point of me sharing this with everybody and with you, Ryan, is that
Mm.
after reading that book and opening up what you mentioned about the future and these Adamic principles, this way of life, this truth of our world,
Mm.
and bringing conscious individuals in, this soul appears to have presented itself, ready And I've always said I won't bring a child into the world until we have a forest garden, until we're in a space where there are people around us who, because it's not just me and my partner who will bring that child up. It's a village. I'll stop there.
Well, what you're talking out loud, if I may play it back to you, is the modern day equivalent of what that Essene community would have represented.
Right.
You'd have been surrounded by a community of people who had that ability, spiritual gifting turned on, that was
Mm,
used. It was, you're talking about your parents and your brother getting involved in that now. So but imagine having a group of 15, 20, like it was, you just said that, and they were like, yeah, because the sky's blue. Like it was just the most normal thing ever, right? That just
mm,
becomes like the muscle is just so on that it's just, yeah, like imagine just being around that group of people. No wonder they were so expectant of the arrival of the Christ, because they were tapping into even just a more purer, cleaner version of what you're talking about, right? Because we're 2,000 years later trying to get these things back on board again.
mm.
Wow, man. Wow, wow, wow. That's powerful stuff. Do you think that's how much of that do you believe is to do with remembering something with which we once already knew?
This we really wow, that's a serious question.
I ask because I would like to know the answer,
Yeah.
not because I have
Me
the
too,
answer.
me too, brother. Hang on, let's just see what happens here. Um, it, this brings up one of the questions that I have, which I don't know, I can't fathom an answer. And it is that okay, we're having an experience, right? It's a game, it's well, I don't know how people feel about that, but it's a bit of it's a play, it's a game. We're having an experience on another worldly thing.
Yeah.
Um, at the baseline, what's the point? So, 2,000 years ago, as we have come to understand, that there was this attempt to present to the world, and before that, the story is usually the exact same story told over and over again, and
Mm,
the story being that there is an individual who comes forward. People in the world now, they're not saying it's an individual, but it's a collective awakening.
mm,
But so it appears that in our past, it was there was a play that was constructed. Yeshua, Mary Magdalene, the Essenes, they got ready, and then they went out. And it's like, right, Yeshua's now gonna, and the whole idea of him being crucified, they knew it was coming. This
mm,
wasn't like a
mm,
heinous thing that happened. Like they needed it it was orchestrated. He
mm,
knew what would the point of his presence was, and that was that okay, he went through this experience, but it was to show the world, look at what you're doing, right? Look at what you are doing. You have these punishments. You're
mm,
behaving in this way.
mm,
And I'm not going to condemn you for it. But when you look in the mirror and the spark goes, it's like boom, and you look kind of looking at your hands, you're like, perhaps the guy was, if the guy who whipped him, etc., he's got the whip in his hand, he's looking at his hands, he's like, what am I doing? This awakening. And so, when you mention about remembering, and we talked about that concept of, if the truth is that we ultimately are from a place of love and joy and happiness and oneness, oneness is the key one, oneness, then perhaps the remembering is just the coming back together. Like if we are at one, but we're having an experience of being separate, then remembering is everybody coming back together. Now, that perhaps might, I'll only share another few seconds. I don't like to dominate conversations.
You're all good.
I'm excited. Um, it might give people the idea of, well, hang on a minute, I lose my identity if you're talking about me coming back together.
Mm,
But it's like, not necessarily. Ugh, and that's where I think I might have to stop, because I don't know. Not necessarily, but when you start to awaken, I remember the day, and I mean this with love to anybody. If you're a meat eater, it doesn't matter to me. It's an experience, but I cooked myself some chicken 6.5, 7 years ago, and I had it on my plate, and I looked at it, and I just had this moment. I was like, "What are you doing?" And I
mm,
never ate meat again.
Mm.
And it's just bizarre, and I don't, I've got no animosity to other people. Like, again, when I was born, there was people who were vegetarian, and were they condemned? It's just experience, right? But it just happened. And so it's like with, that philosophy of the whip and just looking at your hands, like when you have that awareness, do you then stop? I didn't mean to use the meat. That's a bit of a
All good.
persecution. I
No, all
mean
good.
to, but do we then stop that behavior?
Mm.
Because I guess the meat was in alignment with the diet. So it's just, that's just the idea. And then, moving on the spectrum back to love, because, people will turn around and they recognize, hang on a minute, this sucks. Like, I don't want to feel pain. I don't want to feel pain. So anyway, interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
it's powerful. And I'll pick up where you said that you don't know, because I have a perspective around the sense of identity. And I guess
Mm,
this kind of comes from, die unto thyself, so that you can be born again. But it's that idea that in a community, for me, community means means to be with, and unity is oneness. So to be together as one, right? And I
mhm.
think one of the wonderful things we're invited into, because I think the Essenes, or the Ebionim as they were referred to in the Bible, the poor ones, and not
Oh,
poor as in monetary, but poor because they didn't own anything.
mm,
Not in the WEF sense of you'll own nothing and you'll be happy, but in the in the sense of I give all my contributions to the community, and then
mm,
what I'll have in return is I'll never need anything again, because
mm,
that is the sense of true community: is we all give what we've been given, we all
mm,
give what we've got, and therefore we'll never lack. I'll make the bread, you'll make the shelter, someone will make the clothes, someone will nurture the children. Isn't that the
mm,
wonderful opportunity that we find what we have, and then we are called to give what we have? I think one of Yeshua's disciples, Peter, in his gospel, or in his book, says, your gifts and skills and talents are for those in the world who need them.
mm,
So I find my sense of identity, not necessarily as an attachment to my gifts and talents, but I find what I've been given, therefore I give it. And then therefore I get to receive what somebody else's gifts and skills and talents are. So really, I find my true identity in community. I find my
mm,
space to belong, but it's the paradox, isn't it? It's like a jigsaw puzzle. Like, you're one of 8 billion pieces, right?
mm.
So have the humility, like, calm, like you're one of 8 billion jigsaw puzzles, but the puzzle remains incomplete if you don't place yourself.
Yeah,
And that's the paradox I kind of like to walk, is like humility, but also like responsibility.
yeah. I love that. And it's kind of, if you think of then the person, so if unity and all it is the person with the jigsaw puzzle, which is us, then we're just, your journey of discovering what your piece is just, you picking yourself up and being like, let's see if you fit there, you
Yes.
know? And so
Yes.
it's
And
like,
do I have the courage to put myself there?
ooh, yeah, exactly. you
Hmm.
know. So the other sort of the jigsaw puzzle is a really beautiful analogy, one that even my friend Michael loves also. The other one that I find really powerful is likening our purpose and the reason why we're here to nature,
Hmm.
right? So you have a flower, and a flower needs to be, excuse me, needs to have a pollinator to then continue going. So the flower's like, right, well, and there's a higher intelligence with all of this, right? So the flower's not really saying like, right, this bee's going to be this. Like the flower itself in the higher intelligence is making it happen. But then you have an insect that has a certain, you know, tongue or mouth that's a bit longer, or a bit shorter, and whatever. And so certain flowers get pollinated by certain insects. And
Hmm.
certain insects have the inclination to go to certain other flowers. And so it's again this nature is almost like our perfect mirror. And
Hmm.
so it shows us that there is everybody needs a certain person or a certain thing or something, and you might have it. So there's a person you might have never have met who has exactly what you have to offer, whether that's
Hmm.
making a hat or a shoe or a kind word or whatever. They have what you need. And it's like this beautiful infinite intelligence that guides you to that flower or to that person, etc. And so it's just knowing intrinsically in your being
Mm.
you have value, and that there is a purpose for your life, even if you do not know it yet.
When people come to you for coaching, what do you, what do they experience? What is the process you go through?
So with working with me, the most important thing is, how does a person feel?
Mm.
Like I've had the beautiful opportunity to work with some wonderful people over the years, and the reason why it's been wonderful is because we both, that person gets an opportunity to experience me, whether it's through my videos or content or a discovery call, which is kind of, again, that, like, how do you feel? Do I resonate with you? If so, let's work together. And so we go through into working, and we just start asking the right questions. And that might not come from my mouth. It might come from the person who I'm working with, and we go on this journey of beginning as a seeker
Mm.
and finding that discovery. What resonates with you? Not from the words I say. I might chip in here and there, but from your internal truth. And I always find that for a person to discover their inner truth
Mm.
on an empowering, sovereign level, it
Mm.
comes from them. I'm not the intermediary. I have worked with people, and they always, like, oh, what is either my higher self say, or etc. I'm like,
Mm.
we can go into meditation, but it's got to come from you.
Mm.
That, what was I saying? Oh, I saw this. Don't ask why I get targeted. I got targeted with this ad. It was to do with a dating app that is designed to be deleted. And I've always
Okay.
said that working with me, like, it's designed so that you never have to work with me again. That's the
Yeah.
ideal
Yeah.
component.
Yeah.
I want it so that you're never a client again.
Yeah.
You're where you need to be. So
True
yeah,
service and empowerment.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. In my earlier days, I had a I had a desire to be the one known for the wisdom, the one known for the source of transformation or whatever. And we live and we learn and we grow and we make friends and heal and forgive ourselves for not what we know and not what we do. But there's a great thing that I just observed in you earlier, which was you remembered that the same wisdom that speaks to you speaks to other people. So
Mm,
you didn't have to be the source of that. And I think that's a real powerful thing that the coaching industry would remember very quickly, which is the technology's there. We do not need to credit ourselves as the source for that wisdom, because the wisdom that speaks to me has the power to speak to you too.
absolutely, absolutely.
Mm. One of the things I love about your work, and I'd love to, if we lived closer, I'd come out on those mountains with you. But you talk about the Albion and this the Arthurian tradition. Like, when did that first capture your spirit, your awareness, and what does that really mean to you?
So it's really fascinating. Um, if I was to dive in as deeply as I could, I in my heart, I can't, because I had certain experiences happen to me, and they were so synchronistic, but the connotations of them are a little bit much. But it started coming to me, and about 6 years ago, King Arthur and all of
Mhm.
these ideas, and it started to really resonate. And ironically, Lucas, my dear friend, I call him my brother. I don't have any brothers and sisters, but I
Yeah.
call him brother. He might as well be.
Yeah.
When we first met, we came together on talking about King Arthur and the Arthuriad. And so recently we gave birth to this idea of the Light of Albion. Now, it takes a lot of work, so we've kind of held off for now, but it will be something that we really focus upon.
Mm.
Everything was available. Now, Ryan, I'm sure you'll know this, brother, but like all the social media handles, the website, everything was available, which,
Yeah.
being in internet marketing over the years, couldn't I couldn't fathom how
Yeah.
this is possible. But it's basically about restoring goodness and decency.
Mm.
This really is the Light of Albion's core beingness. It's through the Arthurian tradition and mythology, using
Mm.
those archetypes and stories and the energies to help restore the goodness and decency to the world. Because I hear so often, I mean, I saw a lady post the other day saying that human beings shouldn't exist, and like, look, like, I'm obviously I know we should. There's good and love in people in the world. There's a lot of bad, so I don't think anyone can truly knock her perspective. But, people are tired, they're fed up, they're exhausted with seeing what they're seeing. But, you know, the world has been molded. People have been molded, and that's the reason why people behave the way they do. So we're here to try to help restore the goodness and decency, the loving kindness, the tending to your home, your hearth, tending to others, tending to the land. When I go to forest, I try to pick up as much litter for as many mushrooms as I take, like, it's one of those things. So it's just using that framework to help bring a message back to the world.
Is there a particular archetype that you're really called into demonstrating in this lifetime?
It would be King Arthur. Yeah, it would be King Arthur. And it's like, I always like to have a look and say, if we resonate with an archetype, with an energy, whether real or not, what was the purpose of that being? And you always hear in the stories, it was the coming together of people, it was the prosperity of the land. There's a beautiful, not as well-known story about Excalibur and the Blue Rose. Excalibur being the masculine version and the Blue Rose being the feminine. And it was saying that the land was there was a blue rose, and when they tended to this rose and it was looked after, the land flourished. But when they forgot, so the blue rose being the divine feminine, the land fell into dismay and discord.
Imagine that.
Imagine that.
Isn't it very symbolic of today's times?
It's very symbolic, And so again, they put in the story of Guinevere and Lancelot, and part of me, just like when they called Mary Magdalene a prostitute and all it, I feel that that's a tamper. They're tampering, because to me, hence why I'm not so resonant with the second book. To me, that again, it's that message. It's the honouring of the divine feminine and masculine and the land. So, yeah.
For those of you not watching, these are my two archetypes. Just on my mic. So those would be Lion King character. I don't know if you can hear me. Those are my archetypes that guide me. One is the King Mufasa. I've got a wonderful 12-year-old boy and a 10-year-old girl, so that is my current role right now. And I just hope that I'm on the path to becoming this wise old baboon, the sage monkey. But I'm really, I get to play with these, right? We get to look at life and know that all these archetypes are available to us, like characters we get to play, and some resonant with the sage, the mystic, the warrior, the king. And hey, why not in this lifetime see what an expression of those four are in this lifetime? If I go and have like a slushy, if I'm just going to mix several different flavors, I'll get my own unique way. It might taste like shit, who knows? But that's kind of where I'm called to, those four: the sage, the mystic, the warrior, the king. Let's go and see what that kind of self-expression looks like in this lifetime. I shared something on the podcast before about my perspective of King Arthur. It's completely uneducated, but I wonder whether it resonates. The sword in the stone. I really believe that the sword is waiting for you to develop the character to be able to wield the sword.
Oh, hands down, through and through. Most perfect sentence spoken. It's funny because when you look at the stories with Merlin and the Lady of the Lake, so Merlin is sort of the mentor of the young king, the soon-to-be king. And the Lady of the Lake is the one who bestows the power. So again, you have this message that it is the divine feminine, it is only the divine feminine who bestows kingship and the power to be king upon the soon-to-be king. Okay, so and Lucas has a beautiful analogy, and this came from him. He was likening it that our spine, so there's a sword that goes down, like our spine is the sword. And as you work through all of the things that perhaps the chakras or the spine is here to show you,
The ladder, yep.
right? Like the heart, love, and the voice speaking authentically, the third eye to see beyond, the crown, obviously, to become sovereign embodied being, solar plexus identity, etc., etc. Once you embody all of the lessons of these even if people don't resonate with chakras, how else can we put it? These sort of stories, these things telling us, then you become crowned. Whether you're man or woman, this isn't just talking about kings and men. It's man or woman, you become crowned. And so, yeah, it's like you say, embodying the qualities that a king would embody. And I like the Anastasia books, because it talks about when a man and woman come together and have a piece of land, a forest garden, they become the kings and queens, or the what's the word she uses specifically? I can't remember. But you become the king and queen of that land. You become
stewards.
Stewards, yeah, perfect, absolutely. You hold the guardianship of that land. So yeah, the qualities assigned with that.
Where are you with making that vision a reality?
Oh, that's a big question. I will never stop whilst there is breath in my lungs. At the minute, it's basically a point of manifestation. And I look at, there's tens of hundreds of thousands of people with this same like future purpose in their heart. Feels like we're waiting. It feels like waiting. It's an odd one, Ryan. I'm at where I'm at in life and working on myself. It feels like it is a manifestation soon to be. But as for when that happens, can't say.
It's definitely a lifestyle my wife and I feel called to live, but like you can't see me right now, but I have very soft hands. I clearly have worked with computers a lot of my lifetime. I put that down to a number of factors, but yeah, there's a part of me that feels unprepared for that lifestyle. So I know that this intermediary phase is like, hey, go build a chicken coop in my back garden. Go and see what that's like. We've got two planters of, we've been growing our own. I say royal we. My wife has been leading the way, if I was to be fair. But, green beans, cauliflowers, we've had incredible tomatoes, like the tomato soup that we had from home. Oh, my word, the sweetest thing of life, right? Exactly. I fasted for a few days and I had some like fresh apple. Mate, biblical, nearly makes you cry, right? Is insane what we are missing out on because of overconsumption. And I'm not saying that from a high and mighty perspective. I'm saying that for remind myself, like, because I do not live from that space as often as I would like to. But man, it's powerful, 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 powerful. So, for me, I am waiting for a opportunity and a community to partner with my desire to make that a reality. And I think even just conversations like this to get it part of the zeitgeist, get it part of the consciousness of heart-centered people. Why don't you share with your vision? We've talked a lot. Like, let's go straight to the middle of it. What is the vision?
Yeah. So first of all, it would be phenomenal to have Michael sat next to me doing this, and Lucas as well. They're two people who've joined. We came together. We birthed Guy and Earth. It was Michael's had this vision in his heart for God knows how many years. I think it's up to 40, 50 years. Lucas has had
Well, here's the deal. Whenever you're back in company with those two men, we'll do it. We'll have them on.
Amazing. That would be phenomenal.
Good.
Really, really wonderful. Lucas has had this in his heart for, I think, over 20 plus years. To me, Michael is very much, we talk globally. Ethics can only be a word that anybody can use if every single human being on the planet has access to the same things. Otherwise, it is not possibly ethical. If one person doesn't have beautiful clean water from the spring, etc., the beautiful vegetables and fruits, it ain't ethical. So we talk about Wales becoming the first truly ethical country, and then, ideally the world, but we talk in stages, don't we, through timelines. But the idea would be, I mean, Michael is a very fond advocate of the acre, so everybody has, living by the acre. We do that in talking with 2.5 acre plots of land. So it's the Anastasia philosophy that you'd have a family of 4 or 5 on 2.5 acres. And so the idea being that you'd have many villages pop up, and these villages, people would have their little plot of land. They'd have trees and vegetables and springs and ponds and rivers, perhaps, topography of the land running through, naturally built homes, beehives, everything that you could possibly want and more. And then, like you say, you have certain people doing certain things, and it just grows from there. And once you have villages established, they work together, then you have counties, then you have countries, then you have globally, and so it's really about taking things from globalization to localization, and Michael's beautiful sentence is starting with a bucket of gravel or a bucket of soil, starting with something simple, because everybody can do that. You don't need a degree in horticulture or whatever to do it. A shovel and a spade, and and the right people around you, you can get started. So it's really about everybody having that sovereignty, everybody having access to it. And the final bit is, people coming onto the land. I mean, this is a monstrous conversation. It would need hours in itself. But one of the big things is the resources. We're living in a world of financial exchange. And whilst we're doing that, to me, to open the door to land and that, we need money, and a lot of it,
Yeah.
like we're talking tens of millions, really. It wouldn't need that to start the first one. But if let's just say you had access to 110 million pound, and it was to, to buy what you needed. And then if people come along, like, let's say, somebody come along like yourself with a couple of children, a wife, and you've already got bills, you've already got a lifestyle and a purpose. Well, there could be funding to be like, right, okay, so you're doing the podcast and things. Do you have assistants? And finding out what bits of money people need to continue their passion and purpose until they're stable on the land and proceed forward. Because really the only thing at the minute limiting anything is really finances. People are like, oh, well, I'd love to do it, but I've got to spend 8 hours doing this. And I need income from it, or for me to maintain that, I need the finances. So that's where we're at, really. Finances.
I'm fascinated at the people dynamics of living in harmony with other human beings in such a community. It's obviously it's what we talk about here at Always Betting Yesterday: leadership, heart-centered leadership. Well, I think we understand it from a workplace. I think we're starting to understand it from a family place. But make no mistake, there's going to be some refinement of human beings. It's a spiritual thing, living in harmony with other people, right? And I think highly evolved beings will naturally self-police, self-organize. They'll just do what is required or best thing in that situation. But let's just say for 1 minute, maybe we're not as highly evolved as we think we are. What's your what kind of leadership do you think those communities would require?
Do I have the authority to answer one of the most profound questions I think that exists in the world at the minute? I don't know. It's, it comes down to, for me, there are a few concepts that I know are a fact. I've lived in communities. I've been a part of projects and land projects in a couple of ways, and ironically, both of them didn't quite work out. One of the big things that I recognized is that people at least need to have their own sovereign space. If somebody has their own space, if they're not on the toes of other people, then you at least have breathing room. It's when either people are too close together, or people don't feel, or they're taking on too much, etc., and they're not heard and listened to, just forget it. It is bound to break apart. So Ryan, it's a very powerful question, and one that I am personally still sitting with. I'm an advocate of not answering a question if I don't feel like I have the full answer, and I'm still sitting. It's tremendous. And I think that before a community is formed and before any philosophy of leadership is brought forward, you have to have the basics of human understanding and behavior and needs in place, which is why, money to a dragonfly flew by. That's fascinating. Um, Interesting. Okay. Uh, um, if as many people have more than what they need, I think that at least it lays the foundation.
Yeah.
But it's a big question, Ryan. I need
It's
more
hard,
time.
man. It's hard. And I think, Yeshua with his handpicked 12 disciples, there are points where he definitely face palmed. There's a bit where Yeshua would have just gone like, come on now. Like. So, there's an ideal and then there's a journey towards where, and I think if I was to overlay an answer, or at least a journey, it comes back to what we said at the beginning, which is the ideal is love, the expression
Mm,
of love in its purest form, as best as we possibly humanly can. That involves us all doing our own individual work, getting to a point where we're
mm.
healing that as much as that as possible, so that we can come and be an expression and a demonstration of that love and light as much as we can.
And actually, you just said the perfect word, the demonstration. And I think the reason why I hesitate so much with answering that question is because, you know, I don't think I'm there yet demonstrating it. I'm still reactive at times. I still find it hard when you recognize behavior and you think, how are you not seeing it, etc. Or, so to be a leader of this, you have to be completely impartial. You have to recognize that a person is not their behavior. That's a very how to influence and influence
Great
people.
reminder.
It's
Yeah.
it's a powerful philosophy. Do I embody that to mastery? No, I don't. And I truly humble myself with that. It's something, that, yeah, not to say I'm perfect with my behavior. I think that's the whole point, isn't it?
Yes.
So I'm
Yes.
still learning myself. So it's a massive question, Ryan. And time and understanding and patience and having what you need is
Yeah.
really the way.
I've been very quiet on social media for the last 18 months for that very reason. I think, if I'm going to be bold enough to call myself a heart-centered leader and leading a movement of heart-centered leaders,
Mm,
there was a great opportunity for me to demonstrate that with the people that matter to me most, and they've had the focus of my time, energy, devotion, and yeah, I wouldn't speak on their behalf, but I can see the fruits that,
mm,
and sometimes that, I guess it's like the transformation, right, of a caterpillar to butterfly. There's that
yeah.
initial period where you got to go try out your new wings. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm in that kind of period where I've been through. I don't know. I'm sure you've been through a many dark night of the soul, but yeah, the universe brought one for me a couple of years ago, and I tell you what, it's like pulling back of an arrow.
Mm, mm,
And I feel like I'm in that phase where I'm just letting go now of, okay, let's see what's been formed, let's see what character, let's see the ability to, I guess what it happens is the world's flipping chaos right now, and I guess it's see how much I can be present in the world, not of the world.
I love that, brother. And I commend you for that too, because taking the time out as well. There is tremendous honor in that because like you said, the world can be like, oh no, you got to be and do. Nah,
Mm.
nah. There's great honor in taking a step back and being like, let's do this and trusting. That time is working and doing what it needs to do. So I love hearing that, and I respect you for that massively.
What dragons do you think we've got on our collective horizon that are going to require men to stand up and slay? Men or women?
After 2020, when it actually went ahead and happened, it's got to be the stuff that people are talking about at the minute. The deep insanity of phase two of the ID things and stuff like this, talking about, it's one of those things where people had an opportunity to recognize, logically and critically what was happening, i.e., you're fed information, and by the information's very nature, it doesn't make sense. And I think that it's happening here again. Only yesterday I looked up, and people look, love to everybody watching this. And if you disagree with me, I appreciate you anyway. But I looked up at the sky and there was just line after line after line. And then half an hour and a half later, the whole sky was white. And people questioned that and then they admitted it. I mean, I looked up one day and I'm like, that ain't right. When did that
Mm.
start happening?
Mm.
And then and a red kite's just come out. And then they admitted to it, become a public thing. And so, but this is happening again. So we're having like phase 2 or 3. It's coming out. People are saying this is ridiculous, blah blah blah. And we'll see, brother. But I trust in the path and why we're here. Forest Gardens, going back to what you said with, the Essenes and this love and this unity. I trust it. And I trust people. So we'll see.
Bruce Lipton once quoted Buckminster Fuller on the podcast. He said, "If you can't change a system from within, then go and start a new one." If we're not doing it, we're off to the mountains.
And if anybody has £280 million, look, I'm here. All right, we're
grateful recipients. Yeah, 100%. James, is there anything I've not asked you that you'd love to share with people before we bid farewell?
Nothing, brother. I just want to say thank you so much for a truly revitalizing conversation. It's been a pleasure to chat on here. I really appreciate it. You're a lovely guy. Thank you for the work you're doing and staying consistent with all these episodes. I've seen, you're over 300 now.
Yes, sir.
Incredible, brother. Over 300. That's dedication. So I just want to thank you for your time and energy. And that's it. And I hope everybody who watched this took something of value. And see you next time.
For clarity, James wants to help you live consciously, compassionately, lovingly, rooted in truth, sovereignty, and empowerment. If that really resonates, if you're pulled by this conversation, reach out to this beautiful man, have a conversation with him, share space and time with him. And James, maybe we'll leave it with this one call to action for people to reclaim their sovereignty. What would you say to them right now?
I would say to be present with your internal self. Just as much as you can, just be with yourself. There's time, you have time. There is hope, you've got hope. And if you can just allow yourself to ask yourself the right questions, be gentle and graceful with yourself, the answers will come. I promise you. Even in my life, when things look uncertain, I guarantee you things are going to happen. They've happened many times before. Things will happen for you. Trust yourself. Trust the infinite nature of infinite spirit, all that is, the universe, God, whichever fits for you, and know that it is going to be all right. We're all here for a reason, myself included. It's going to be okay.
Cheers, brother.
All right. Take care.
Hey, my friends, thank you for making it to the end. I hope that our time spent together today has left you a little bit better than before you push play. I'd really appreciate if you just took a moment to leave a review to allow me to meet more people where they are and hopefully leave them a little bit better too. If you're curious to know how I, through Always Better Than Yesterday, can serve you, your team, your organisation, then head to alwaysbetterthanyesterday.com to connect. And while you're there, let me know 1 or 2 things that you're going to do as a result of listening to this conversation. I absolutely love hearing your thoughts, your reflections, and the things that this spark in your own heart and mind. If you want more insights from my heart and mind, I do send out short episodes on a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday and Friday, and again, I hope that they serve you well. I appreciate you listening. I'm Ryan Hartley, host of the Always Better Than Yesterday podcast, a podcast for heart-centered leaders just like you. Keep leading, my friends. Always love.